This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And here's your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, I'm Paul Dickerson, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. Today, it's all about energy policy and energy education. First up, Jack Belcher, Vice President of the Consumer Energy Alliance, a nonprofit, bipartisan organization promoting policies for domestic energy production. Next up, Keith Thayer, producer of a publication called Energy Choices, this guide with facts and perspectives on all categories of energy. All that right after this.
Where will the energy come from to move us forward? From natural sources in abundant supply, or perhaps a man-made source? At NRG, we believe innovation will solve our energy needs. That's why NRG is moving away from fossil fuels towards wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies to power the smart grid, the electric car, and our clean energy future. We're using all of our energy to develop more of it.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. Our guest now, Jack Belcher, Vice President at the Consumer Energy Alliance. Jack, great to have you on the program.
Paul, great to be here. Thank you.
So tell us about Consumer Energy Alliance.
Well, Consumer Energy Alliance is a nonprofit, bipartisan organization that is made up of energy producers and consumers that are concerned and dedicated to sensible national energy policies that promote domestic production.
Well, how bipartisan is it?
It is very bipartisan. Energy is not a partisan issue. Everyone in this country, every district in this country is impacted. Energy production in this country takes place all in both Democrat and Republican districts, and members of Congress and political figures in this country of all across the spectrum are engaged on energy policy. Unfortunately, some politicians have taken an anti-domestic energy view or have tried to pit one form of energy against the other, but energy is very important to both political parties, and we encourage that.
And nuclear?
Absolutely. Very important source of energy in this country, and we're very active in supporting the nuclear energy industry.
Well, I'm sure you've heard from some opponents to fossil energy production, complaining that man-made global warming is here and that it needs to be tended to. What's your take?
Consumer Energy Alliance doesn't take a position on global warming. Our mission is focused on the need to produce energy of all forms in this country and on the benefits of energy production in terms of jobs and growing the economy and reducing our reliance on imports. Those are the things that are important to us and to our members, and we stay focused on those.
Well, we're in the midst of a presidential election, and you're hearing all sorts of proposals as it relate to energy. Share with us a few that you think are important.
Well, there are a lot of proposals that are both pro and anti-domestic energy, unfortunately, right now. There are several proposals in Congress that have come out in recent weeks. Some of them are looking to expand those areas in offshore in the Outer Continental Shelf. There are also policy efforts that have taken place in recent months that have done things like delay the Keystone Pipeline, which is critical to our country's future energy supply. So there are good policies and bad policies, and there are also policies that are aimed at punitive taxes on the industry, and those are very important as well.
Are we going to get this pipeline built?
I think eventually we are going to get it built. It's so critical to the country. It will add hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil to the Gulf Coast region. It'll give our refineries future supplies of North American crude, and I believe it will go forward. It's unfortunate that politics is being played with such an important asset, and that so many jobs are really kind of held in the balance here until this pipeline gets permitted.
Well, and to that end, we saw massive job losses with what happened in the Gulf. not so much what happened, but the reaction or overreaction to what happened there.
Exactly.
Can you share some of your thoughts about policies?
Well, policies like that make a difference, and really what is detrimental to our domestic industry is uncertainty. When permits are delayed, when policies are prolonged, when companies don't know that they can make investments with confidence, then it has long-term implications on projects and ultimately on jobs. And it's unfortunate that the Gulf of Mexico situation has dragged on as long as it has, and that companies and that we're still not back to where we need to be in the Gulf of Mexico right now. And the Gulf of Mexico makes a tremendous contribution to our nation's energy supply, and it's something we really need to be focused on, and we need policies that get people back to work and get us producing that energy again.
But despite Congress's inability to think long-term, as a nation, we seem to have found ourselves bathing in a fair amount of domestically produced oil and gas. Is that right?
We're very fortunate. We're living in an amazing time. One of those big contributors is, of course, the shale revolution. Oil and gas that are being produced around the country, and huge supplies that are going to be of long-term benefit to the country. We're in a position right now where we can really turn the corner and make a difference. We're already reducing the amount of oil imports that we need in this country, and if we continue to produce those assets, continue to produce the deepwater Gulf of Mexico, get going in Alaska offshore, encourage the building of the Keystone Pipeline, and take other sensible steps to let technology accomplish what our companies and our people are capable of doing, then we can actually, down the road, really make a substantial reduction in terms of our imports.
I can imagine some of our viewers asking themselves, all right, so who wouldn't be for this? You know, a lot of what you're talking about just seems to support our nation and job growth at home. Who doesn't support?
Well, there are politicians, organizations, and individuals that are fundamentally against fossil fuels, for instance, and support policies that will do things like stop pipelines, that will do things like put punitive taxes on industry, things that are ultimately damaging to our ability to produce energy in this country. And it's not just oil and gas. Siting for transmission that hooks up wind farms in the west in our country and connects them to where markets are. Those are difficult to site. We have a lot of issues in this country that are preventing us, a lot of opponents of domestic energy in this country that are preventing us from moving forward with a lot of these projects. And you know, CEA is about we need it all, and it really is all forms of energy. We should be taking advantage of the technology and our capabilities in this country, and we're so blessed in this country with the geology and the resources that we have to move this economy forward and reduce our vulnerability to imports.
So you're a fan of solar, a fan of wind, geothermal.
We're a fan of all of the above, and we believe that it's going to take all forms of energy to supply us with what we're going to need in the future, and that it is good for us to be diversified because that gives us the long-term capability of utilizing future sources of energy that creates jobs and opportunities, and it is about opportunity. When we have options as a society, we're always better off if we're not wedded to one source of energy. So these are all good things, and I believe a lot of these sources of energy actually complement one another. So we believe that our policies should be focused on all of the above, encouraging the ingenuity and capability that we have in this country to really go and make a difference and turn a corner for the next generation in this country.
Well, if someone wants to learn more about Consumer Energy Alliance, where would they go?
You could go to our website, which is www.consumerenergyalliance.org. There's good information out there about all forms of energy, about our policies, and that our website encourages its visitors, encourages the energy consumers of this country to weigh in on public comment periods. So on the website, there are links to calls to action where you can get online and weigh in with federal agencies or with members of Congress and have your voice heard. It's a very important part of what we do, is to really motivate citizens in this country to get active on these critical issues.
Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming in and discussing some important issues.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And that concludes our discussion with Jack Belcher. We'll be back with more right after this.
The future is here.
You can't see it. It's electric.
At NRG, we're providing clean energy and now charging stations to make the electric car a reality. Kinda makes you want a boogie woogie, doesn't it? NRG, moving clean energy forward.
It's electric.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. Our guest now, Keith Thayer, producer of the publication Energy Choices. Keith, great to have you on the program.
Well, my pleasure. I'm honored, sir. Thank you.
So tell us about Energy Choices.
Well, Energy Choices is about a 50-page booklet that covers about 30 different sources of energy, and it's written in layman's language. It's for the public. It's non-dictatorial in its results. It produces the facts, and it has references in there so that the public, when they read this, can dig deeper if they want to on energy choices.
Written by some engineers.
Written by all of the articles are either written by engineers or people that are as qualified as engineers, that are experts in their field. Indeed, and they're from all over the world.
What made you decide to be the catalyst in trying to educate the public more on their energy choices?
I was president of the ASME, an international organization, talked to a lot of people, and I was somewhat appalled with the lack of knowledge that the people that we ran into who are considered lay people are people on the street that are not in the engineering profession, and even some of those on their lack of knowledge of the overall picture. And, you know, they've got to make decisions at the polls and so on. How are they going to do that if they don't know what the answers are? And also the media, I think, enjoys the excitement of writing big articles and giving the wrong impression.
And ASME
is the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. We're one of the founder societies, professional societies for engineering professions.
When it comes to our national energy policy, is all of the above the right approach?
The policy, I think, would be to explore all of the energy sources, if you will, but the only financial support or incentives that they ought to have would be for research and possibly a little for development. But the commercial area, I think, needs to stand on its own feet.
So don't be involved in picking winners or losers.
Well, that's right, and also look at the magnitude of the scope of the new alternative energies don't have the capacity that the ones we've been using for years have.
There's talk that maybe, as a nation, we finally have this gift of inexpensive energy. Might we want to keep it and use it to make our manufacturing less expensive and the rest rather than export? What's your take?
I think we need to use a lot of judgment on that. And the first thing that comes to my mind, what happened to the steel industry? We could have used a lot of that energy on it, and we exported it to China and so on. I don't know whether we can get it back or not. I think we live in a world where we need to consider everything and not think we can isolate ourselves at all.
All right, so if someone wants to get a copy of Energy Choices, where do they go?
Well, the easiest thing is to go to the website. It's ASME, 4 letters, .org, ASME.org, and go through the contents there, and you'll find the publications, and keep looking till you find Energy Choices, and it's available there.
Keith, thank you so much for coming in today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
I'm flattered to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, and that wraps this episode of the Energy Makers Show, heard on the radio nationwide and seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com. I'm Paul Dickerson, and we'll see you next week.